This isn't a video that I was especially excited to make, just because I want to talk about other things. But I'm kind of just in shock that Origins Explained was able to get away with it for so long. They put out a video about a year ago, and I looked around to see what people are saying. There doesn't seem to be any responses. People perpetuate it. They write articles, not for reputable websites, but they're writing articles about it. People seem to be retweeting it. They seem to be perpetuating the claims made in this video, but nobody seems to be questioning them, and it's so Googleable. It's so easy to find the answers here and to prove them wrong that you don't even need Google. You could pick up any Catholic Bible right now and show that at least part of their claims are erroneous. So what's the claim? I'm going to play the full clip for you.
10. Missing books of the Bible. In the year 1684, the Vatican removed 14 books from the Bible. To this day, there is no explanation as to why, and the Vatican is happier with the general population not knowing. There were originally 80 books in the Bible when it was translated from Latin to English back in 1611.
Kind of a funny point here. What they're actually referencing is the King James Bible, which is actually not Catholic. But more funny than that is the fact that although it does include these extra 14 books, it designates them as apocryphal.
These days there are only 66. The missing books are known as the Apocrypha, which in Greek means hidden. The missing books include Esdras, Tobit, Judith, the Wisdom of Solomon, the Songs of the Three Holy Children, Bel and the Dragon, Maccabees, and the Prayer for Manasseh.
Okay, so they're saying that in the year 1684, there was a meeting that happened evidently in secret that nobody knows why it happened, but they decided to kind of arbitrarily eliminate 14 books from the Bible. This didn't happen. I'm trying to be charitable here. I don't think people pull things out of thin air as often as we want to say. I think there's a lot of misconstruals. I think there's a lot of exaggerations. I think people are mostly playing parts. I think people want to get clicks on their content. I also think people just don't understand what they're reading. But I don't know where they got these ideas. If you know of major events that happened in the Vatican in the year 1684, let me know. But I'm very, very sure, 100% sure as a matter of fact, that what did not happen in the year 1684 is an elimination of 14 books of the Bible by the Vatican. We can know the development of the canon prior to this. We can know where it was settled. And we can know where the canon ended up after this. So if you don't want to go any further in this video, all you need to do is pick up your Catholic Bible, go through the list that they identified of books that are considered apocryphal by the Catholic Church, and see if those books are present in the Catholic Bible. You will find all but 2 from their list are. Those 2 being Esdras and the Prayer of Manasseh. Now, Esdras can be broken down into 2, whether you call them 1st and 2nd Esdras, if you're looking at your King James Version Apocrypha, or if you call them 3 and 4 Esdras, if you're referencing the Vulgate. Doesn't matter too much, but they're referring to texts surrounding the prophet Ezra. The Prayer of Manasseh is referring to the sinful King Manasseh. Okay. Either way, these texts are not considered canon, and they are considered apocryphal by the Catholic Church. The rest are considered deuterocanon or second canon. Now, for clarity, the Eastern Church, the Orthodox, they do accept both the Western deuterocanon and these 3 and 4 Esdras / Manasseh as deuterocanon. Okay? But Jews and Protestants consider them to be apocryphal, and Catholics consider a few of these to be apocryphal. But by and large, of their list, all of them, with the exception of those ones, those 2, are present within the Catholic Bible, and some that they didn't list, which I thought was a bit odd. And in fairness, they didn't say it was going to be a comprehensive list. They said, this includes. But they missed the most popular one, which is Ben Sirah. Right? They missed Baruch in the Epistle of Jeremiah. It doesn't matter. Neither here nor there. The rest are going to be present in any Catholic Bible. And so, I want to talk about what they got right first. So, yes, they got right that Manasseh and Esdras are not part of the Catholic Bible. Now, the reason that some clarity is useful with Esdras whether you're talking about 1st and 2nd verses 3 and 4, is largely because 1st and 2nd Esdras in the Vulgate became what we call now Ezra Nehemiah. Okay? So there was an elimination, a loss of those ones, and so that's why the King James Version is able to then redesignate what was 3 and 4 as 1 and 2. Okay? That's the only point of clarity there. This becomes important if you're reading the conclusions of the councils. Okay? So, not every council addressed canons, but some did, and some synods did. So, the Council of Laodicea in the year 364, it did not affirm most of the Deuterocanon. It included Baruch and the Epistle of Jeremiah, but it excluded the rest. However, the Council of Rome 392 did include most of the Deuterocanon. It did affirm that these are part of our canon. The Synod of Hippo 393, same thing, and the Councils of Carthage 397 and 419 did the same thing. None of these, at any point, confirmed any of the Ezras, except for 1 and 2 Ezra, Esdras, Ezra, same thing. It didn't affirm those in any of these councils or synods. Same with the Prayer of Manassas. Okay? So the authenticity of these texts has long been considered spurious. Jerome, he had a very skeptical view of all of these, right? He didn't want most of the Deuterocanon to be part of our canon, so you have to kind of take him with a grain of salt. But Augustine had a pretty inclusive view, and he never included these ones. Neither did Pope Innocent I. And so there's a bit of a debate that could be happening. There's a development of canon between the years 364 and 392, sure. But if you're looking for when it got kind of finalized, set in stone, you can look no further than the Council of Trent. And the Council of Trent explicitly excluded 1st and 2nd Esdras / 3rd and 4th Esdras, whatever you want to call them. It excluded those apocryphal Esdras as well as the Prayer of Manassas, and it didn't mention them at all as part of the canon. This was so notable that Clement VIII, a few years later, in 15... This is so notable that in 1592, Clement VIII decided to republish a revised version of the Vulgate called the Sixta Clement Vulgate. And he took these 3 and 4 Esdras and the Prayer of Manasseh, and he put them in the appendices, lest they utterly perish. He didn't want them to be forgotten about. So he put them in the appendices. But at this point, we've got a very set canon. We know exactly what is part of our Bible and what's not. We know what's part of our Deuterocanon, that is less inspired, but still part of our canon, useful for edification, and what is part of our Apocrypha. We've taken from the list provided in the video by Origins Explained, and we've only got Esdras and Prayer of Manassas as part of the Apocrypha. The rest are all good. So where did they go wrong? What's the error here? Well, one, they made up a date. 1684 is not when any of this stuff happened, right? Again, the Council of Trent happened in the mid-16th century, 1545 to the 1560s, and Clement VIII was in 1592. So 1684, I don't know where they got. But they also are mixing up Protestants and Catholics. Okay? So Protestants have long considered these to be apocryphal. Now, it doesn't mean they don't include them, right? As I understand it, I think the Luther's Bible in, I think it was 1511, excluded the Apocrypha entirely, but by 1534, the Luther Bible did include them. It just labeled them as Apocrypha. The 1611 King James Version included them as well, but it labeled them Apocrypha. Okay? And this became sort of the Protestant tradition, is you can talk about them, you can have them, you can read them, but they're considered to be apocryphal. Now, this does take a bit of a shift. The Westminster Confession, very important, in 1647 excluded the Apocrypha entirely. So it's almost as though they didn't exist. And this became more the norm for the Protestant view of the canon, is that these are not books that we need to read. These are not books that are part of the canon. And so then they kind of get this air of mystery surrounding them where we go, oh, these are apocryphal. They're hidden away from us. But, well, it was a process that the Catholics did with a couple, but they affirmed most. And then the Protestants, they threw the baby out with the bathwater. They said, we don't want any of these as part of our canon, so we toss them all out. None of this stuff had to do with the Vatican trying to, without explanation, hide things from anybody and not want you to know them. Okay. Then, just for fun, I want to play a clip of their next claim.
Even stranger is that Jesus' name was spelled Aesus before these 14 books were removed. The Church changed the pronunciation and spelling. If they had never changed anything, you'd pronounce Jesus' name as...
Okay, so that's their claim. That the name of Jesus was changed, and they kind of make it sound nefarious. Went from Jesus to Jesus. Why? And you would have been calling him Yehoshua. Well, I'm sorry. Is it Jesus or Yehoshua? Which is it? Well, it's both. It's both and or neither nor, right? Matter of fact, very early on, the idea of getting the name exactly right in the original language did not seem to be a very big concern of the early Christians, right? There's a reason they didn't try and preserve the Hebrew in their Greek manuscripts. They could have. They could have just left one glaring Hebrew word there, Yeshua. Matter of fact, there's I think it's a 16th century, I had to double check, a 16th century Hebrew text from Hebrew Christians, and they take the word Yeshua and they make it bigger than even the word Yahweh. So it's a very interesting theological point that seems to be being made by whoever wrote that. Now, grant that's not an early text, so you can't take it with a grain of salt, but it's just an interesting point. So what's happening here? Well, it's that the name is being interpreted in different languages, right? Jesus is just the Greek rendering of this Hebrew name, which is Yehoshua, or shortened to Yeshua, right? And both of these are what we have labeled in our English translation of the Bible as Joshua. So, right, the disciple of Moses has his own book titled Joshua in most of our Bibles, and that's the same name. That's another name that you could call Jesus, right? Yeshua is not somehow distinct. The J is just a translation thing. So, when it was rendered in the Greek, it was called Jesus, and then the Latinized version of that adds the J. There's no J in Greek or Hebrew. So the Latinized version adds the J, Jesus. Nothing nefarious, no conspiracy, nothing that cool. I don't know how they got away with this video. I don't know how nobody's called them out. Thanks for watching.
Why were these mysterious books removed? There are many theories. Some say the contents of the books didn't fit in with the Roman Catholic Church's narrative, and so they were simply taken out. Some believe they made the Bible too long and too confusing, so they were removed. But there is no real answer. None of the books were particularly nefarious, and they don't seem to include any secrets. But for whatever reason, the Catholic Church chose to remove them from the Bible so that the Word of God was exactly what they wanted it to be.